We were talking earlier about investment flows, and you were tying that to the inflation outlook and how ultimately that will, or the two things will connect. Talk about the investment movement, particularly in light of what we've got in terms of the tax overhaul and how that plays into this story.
I think the theory behind what the Trump administration has been trying to do with the tax package is not so much to stimulate the economy, because it's the most ill-timed stimulus in the world, as everyone is saying. But if the theory is that we can actually expand capacity by stimulating investment and incentivizing investment to reshape investments so that we can have longer-based investment, longer-term investment that is productivity enhancing, that will hold down inflation, and that will be able to give us the kind of virtuous cycle that we want in terms of faster growth, higher wages, and no inflation. But the key to that is to be able to invest in more productive equipment and technologies. And up until now, the incentives have been to use debt financing because you can write it off in taxes and everything else. And right now, I think that by having the tax package have a set of incentives that it emphasizes more equity, firms and managers are saying, we should be more long-term oriented. We don't have to invest in tangible equipment and things to pay back our loans. And I think that's our greatest hope for expanding capacity. Now, one little fillip here, the incentives that are put in place to bring back corporate cash from abroad, retained earnings abroad, this reverse inversion notion, that was supposed to give some of the funds to finance some of the investment right now. My research is showing that, at least given past experience, like what happened in 2004, most of that money that does come back really goes to dividends, stock buybacks, and repurchases. And everyone says, oh, how terrible, that stuff is wasted. But I think what I'm trying to find evidence of is that actually we have a closed financial system, in the sense that when shareholders get their money back, what are they going to do with it? Buy more Cheerios and Wheaties? I don't think so, right? They're going to be investing it in other plant and equipment, because essentially their managers are telling them, we can't use your capital. Why don't you find a better use for it? And my research is demonstrating at least some early evidence that the owners of the capital, the shareholders, are actually putting it to work. But it takes a while for this stuff to filter through the system. In fact, it takes as long as maybe 3 to 5 years before it finds itself back into the firm investment and plant equipment investment that will be productivity enhancing. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not a great thing that we have this amount of buybacks and dividends.
And very much related to that, Bank of America Merrill Lynch data shows we've had a near record start to the year for buybacks.
Yeah, we have. Bill, we talked about in the last segment that the last time we really got a productivity boom, which saw wages go up and inflation be pretty mellow, that was in the 90s. What were the conditions that allowed that to happen in the 90s, and how similar is that to what we see today?
Good question.
In the 90s, what we saw was some capacity that was there, but also I think we had an economy that was coming out of a recession, just as we are now, but not as long a stretch out of the recession. In other words, we are now reaching a point where labor resources and other resources are reaching their limits. But the key to productivity is that you make the existing labor force more productive. And I think that's exactly what happened in the 90s. The introduction of the computer took a long time before worker productivity became more productive, at least measurably more productive. It's like that old line from Solo that says, the productivity is everywhere but in the data. And I think one of the things that we are having difficulty now is measuring the kind of productivity enhancement. A lot of the technology investment, a lot of the plant modernizing and equipment modernizing has been giving us. As I said, it takes a long time before the investments lead to the increase in productivity that allows us to have the buffer for inflation. What you see some evidence of is, in fact, the Amazon that you just talked about earlier. Amazon is preventing a lot of firms out there from raising prices, even though their costs are going up. And so technological changes are allowing a lot of sustained wage increases without having price increases. And I think that is a good sign that the kind of productivity enhancements we want are being put in place, but they're just hard to measure right now.
Yeah.